Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend, and thank you for starting off your week by joining us for what is an interesting topic this evening, isn't it? Tonight, we're going to be talking about a company that is selling a product which is designed to record flight and remote ID information within about a mile radius of its location. Now, if you're joining us live in the chat, do hit that like button nice and early. Again, if you're watching the replay, please do that as well. My very much my consistent request of the audience. But also, if you've got any questions about this, any comments to make on this in the live chat in particular, tag us at Geeksvana, and we will come back to that once we've discussed the story itself and get your thoughts and comments on this, as of course you learn about the product itself. Also, if you are watching the replay, let us know your thoughts in the comments. I read every single comment that is left on the Geeksvana channel. Now, this is all happening from a very simple bit of portable and really quite affordable piece of kit. This means that local police stations, park authorities and city municipalities will have the ability to record and review every flight people take within their region. Now, tonight is really more of a knowledge is power type effort, and I feel like it's important information for drone flyers, particularly those in the US where this product is being openly sold, of course with the remote ID there. Now, as one of the first Western countries to adopt a remote ID system for drone use, the US is under, as you might expect, particular focus right now. Whether you intend on using one of the manufacturer drones, pretty much like something like this, the DJI drones, which have a built-in standard remote ID, or you're thinking of using an older drone or perhaps self-build drones with something like a module. Here's one of the infamous now $300 modules from Drone Tag, although there are the company themselves have much cheaper modules available, and there are lots of modules incoming, some of which I've already seen myself. But the time is approaching fast with the September deadline approaching, meaning pilots will need to ensure that their registered drone is compliant, if you intend on complying, of course. Now, there's a lot of controversy and many social media posts surrounding the decision to include the pilot location and the perceived risk this could bring to drone flyers. However, tonight, we want to bring you some information regarding one of the other hot topics within the subject of remote ID. And that is actually in terms of the recording and tracking of the drone flights. So I can hear many viewers out there watching right now shouting quite rightly at the screen that the concept of network remote ID, meaning your drone flight would be recorded and uploaded, was something that was dropped by the FAA following comments submitted in the consultation process. However, of course, we do now have a situation where the FAA are still researching that and still clearly favour a network remote ID system. But in real terms, now in the real world, in outflying your drones, there are some companies out there looking to create products to take advantage of the existing system and give their clients access to flight data and remote ID info over their cloud. Tonight, as I say, we're going to take a look at one such product. Now, I'm not, this is an important point to make on this video as well, that I'm not actually calling out this company, UAS Sentry, in particular as an individual company. I'm not saying that, you know, it's time to pour hate on this company at all for producing this kind of tech. That's really not their doing, the same way as I don't see that we should hate Drone Tag for producing these modules. In any regulatory environment, there will always be companies who look to produce products to maximize their returns. So really, these products are only ever developed coming out of the regulations that are actually put into place. So really, as I say, these kind of products only exist because the FAA have placed remote ID into place, and come September it will be there. Now, over the past year or so, I've been watching this product develop and become a reality from what was initially an idea that I saw posted a lot from an individual who then opened up a group about it, to now actually a formal product which is openly sold. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take a look at the website. Now, here's a QR code which will take you straight to the website so you can have a look at it and catch up on it as well. Just leave that up there for just a couple of seconds. And then we'll pop up the actual website. So here we are, UAS Sentry. So this is basically bringing real-time alerts, as it says. I'm actually going to refresh this so that it brings up the full page. Detect drones around your property with UAS Sentry's advanced remote ID sensing technology. Now, it straight away on the website jumps into explaining some of the use cases that are actually going to be that this product will actually be designed for, and we'll actually show the product on their website in just a couple of minutes. So the power to protect, you might expect energy infrastructure. Okay, I can see perhaps a lot of these use cases, you can see some sensible reasons of perhaps why you might actually need this product in place. I think we would all say energy infrastructure, to be able to know what drones are coming, and if remote ID is a thing, to be able to see who they are. I can see that that's obviously something which can be fairly useful. Prisons, and there's a I would say it's not a particularly realistic photograph to have used. I'm not sure that particular drone would actually be carrying that particular size of what is, I believe, supposed to be drugs, or perhaps it's just a package, but yes, perhaps a slightly unrealistic system there. But being alert to what is around the yard, using the terminology there. UAS Sentry can be an effective tool to protect a prison from potential drone threats. Here's how it could work. And again, going on to explain actually how that works in that use case. Again, I don't see a huge problem with that. Airports, okay, again, especially smaller airports that perhaps cannot afford the more expensive counter drone technology. Some of this tech you can get into place for really under $1,000, potentially less than that, depending on the system that you're using with them. Executive security. Again, I suppose they're always going to think up as many use cases as they possibly can, aren't they, from this type of product. But UAS Sentry can be a valuable asset to executive security teams, providing an extra layer of protection. It's an interesting one, that in terms of how it would be deployed and what you could do with that information, I suppose. Because again, part of it, of course, is just because there's a drone flying, it has remote ID, doesn't mean you can stop it, particularly in those kind of situations where you're out and about in public, frankly. Stadium security, again, I don't, I can see why that a stadium would have counter drone. Some of you may be skipping ahead and looking at some of these other icons here and can see some of the issues that are coming up. So obviously, police/state patrol to protect and serve. UAS Sentry is an effective solution for state patrol and police departments to mitigate the risks and threats posed by drones in their operations. So this one is actually talking about being able to use it whilst they're up and about so they can see what else is flying. I don't see that as a particular issue, especially as this does pick up all RF information. So even if someone's flying without it, I suppose the officer can see whether or not there's a drone in the air and if it's safe for them to take off and keep deconfliction. Obviously, wildfire. This is very much a hot topic at the moment, and there's a lot of work going into trying to reduce drone flight around wildfire situations, basically, as well. Now, this next one has me a little bit uncomfortable for many reasons. And again, I realize it's a company selling a product and they need to sell as many products as they can to obviously be a commercial success. But securing your surroundings. UAS Sentry is a powerful security system designed to protect your property from potential drone threats. With easy setup and 24/7 monitoring, it provides round-the-clock peace of mind knowing that your property is always being watched. One of the key features of UAS Sentry is its ability to collect and store historical data, enabling users to review previous activity and detect patterns of suspicious drone behavior. The system sends instant alerts to connect devices, allowing for real-time monitoring and quick response to any potential threats. UAS Sentry is an essential tool for homeowners who want to enhance their home security by detecting and deterring unauthorized drone activity. Its affordability and reliability make it a top choice for anyone looking for a powerful, easy-to-use solution to protect their property. Now, to me, this is the first use case that really starts to flag up as a bit of an issue, because this isn't a piece of kit which is being regulated in terms of who they're selling it to and that type of thing. This is a piece of kit which is actually is widely available, basically. So you're talking about a homeowner being able to install this kit within their property, placing up a geofence on there. It's a geofence in terms of, or an alert fence, rather, I should call it, because it doesn't stop you flying around their property of anywhere really up to a mile is, as far as I can see, the reliable testing distances that they're getting from this device. But that means that basically the homeowner will be getting live updates. So, your phone is going to ping when a drone has come within the area which you have marked, the target area. So you're going to get live pings. You're also going to be able to look up the historic data of drones that have flown around and above your property. To me, that sort of starts to move away from even the incredibly were really the incredible fantasy of what was the FAA video, which we reviewed a couple of weeks ago on a live stream, where there was this sort of long list of people, sort of, you know, from a law enforcement officer calling FBI and database being checked, and if it's on our list, it's okay. If it's not, it must be nefarious. Even from that point of view, this kind of goes away from that, from the point of view that it's storing historical data. This isn't someone that's looked up and they've seen a drone and they want to check an app to basically see whether or not that drone is legal or has remote ID. Well, yeah, it has remote ID identification, is therefore allegedly a non-nefarious flight, but I suppose if you want to do nefarious, you've just got to get remote ID. And yeah, so to me, this is where part of the concern comes in for me, from the point of view that it's a use case that I see could actually really cause some trouble, from the point of view that just because someone's flying a drone over your property, and indeed flying the drone over your property regularly, doesn't mean that it's nefarious. Now, of course, a homeowner, your average homeowner, isn't necessarily going to be able to get the data. They won't be the FBI making a call into the FAA, etc. I don't believe that a homeowner will be able to call the FBI and say, hey, I'd like or the FAA and say, hey, I'd like the data from the person that's been flying a drone over my property. I don't think that's going to happen, frankly. I don't think they're going to be able to get that data. But still, to me, it causes an issue, because if an alert buzzes and there's a drone coming into their zone and it shows that they've flown 10 times, that homeowner has no idea, unless they understand the rules and regulations very, very clearly, whether or not that drone flight is legal, is actually permitted, whether they've got, LANC approval, everything else like that. They have no idea. All they will know, in fact, is that it is someone with the correct remote ID information. So it's a little bit sketchy from that point of view. And as I say, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention is because this company will be recording and uploading all of that data, which we'll come on to, and we'll actually be sharing that out. So here's an explanation of the product itself. So the UAS Sentry system is versatile, lightweight and portable solution that can be easily set up. So drone identification. When a drone takes off, it's required to broadcast a remote identifier that includes its geographic location, as we know, latitude, longitude, height, heading, speed, as well as the pilot's location. UAS Sentry can detect a drone remote ID, identifies and display an alert if a drone enters an area, the area that you've set up on your app. The data is sent directly to a connected phone or cloud account for live map updates and group distribution. So it has real-time tracking. The cloud service sends out alerts to specified devices when a drone enters an exclusion area, and the data allows for real-time tracking on a map screen. So if you've got a regular spot that you're flying, you just happen to have one of these devices either deployed by law enforcement, the town themselves, or actually just a private resident, then your flight data is going to be continuously recorded. Connected devices, UAS Sentry connects to a phone or cloud account for easy access to data and real-time updates, providing a comprehensive view of drone activity in the designated areas. So here is the product itself. Sentry Ultra Portable. There's a 1.9-inch colour screen. There you have the dimensions. It's very small. The weight is 1.3 ounces. It has a 3-hour battery. Obviously, it has the cloud connection straight away, Bluetooth connection to phone for mobile data applications, and Wi-Fi connection for permanent locations. USB-C connection for charging and wall power, as you might expect, and iPhone app required to configure the device. Then you have the step up, which is the Sentry Touchscreen Pro, and as you might expect, it's got a bigger screen. It displays more of the data, etc., in a more a user-friendly way, but otherwise is doing a fairly similar job to the other one. In fact, it even has the same battery life. And then you have the iPhone app, which is free currently on the Apple Store. iOS 15 Plus compatible, can be used for the setup of the device as well. So this gives you push alerts if there are drones in the area. So a real-time interactive map view showing defined security area, drones and pilots that are in the area. Details on drone height, geolocation, heading and speed. You can specify drones as friendly to remove from alerts. Bluetooth or wireless connection to UAS Sentry from there, and you can configure the map view highlights for possible FAA violations, e.g. distance between drone pilot, speed and AGL. So you can actually set up alerts to alert whether or not someone flying in that area is going beyond whatever you have set to feel is an FAA violation. So someone perhaps flying beyond visual line of sight and that type of thing, basically. Auto center to drone map option as well. And then there's the website, which, as you can imagine, does everything the app can, but perhaps in a slightly larger formatted distance. Now, the features that UAS Sentry actually push out themselves as their features is that it has remote ID detection. So all drones must be compliant with remote ID from September 16th. Again, it should be all registered drones. There are sub 250 gram recreational drones. So again, that's the incorrect information on there. And then they give lots and lots of breakdowns of various data, which again, I'm not going to read out because they get the first one wrong, basically. So I'm not sure the others will be correct. Real-time tracking. So once a drone is detected, UAS Sentry is able to provide real-time tracking of its location, altitude, heading and speed. And of course, that also means as the next one says, the drone operator location. If they're able to identify the location of the drone operator through the remote ID data, allowing for appropriate action to be taken. I really don't like the wording on this website, I have to say. And then, of course, alert notifications, as we were saying, and cloud-based service. And, of course, mobile deployment, as you would expect with such a small device. And, of course, the fact that it can identify multiple drones at once, which I suppose you would expect, really, wouldn't you? So this is something which I think has some interest. I mean, really, counter-drone technology, I don't think anybody who's a reasonable user of drones has a massive issue with the correct use of counter-drone technology. I think we know why that's all in place. My fear here is that remote ID as a regulation is actually really starting to open things up to allow for products for Joe Public to have in their house, basically, around their local business, etc., which I feel like it starts to give them the impression that they've got some kind of, I don't know, some kind of power over that drone flight, basically. And that, to me, always feels like a particularly sticky wicket to be going down, shall we say. Now, the company that have actually been putting this together have also been very active on Facebook, including showing a lot of the test runs that they've been out doing, showing, as it says here, the UAS Sentry detected 2, and one of them was flying at over 900 feet when they went to see just outside Coors Field where the Colorado Rockies play to watch a fireworks show. They brought the UAS Sentry touchscreen extended range unit to see if any drones were, and as I said, they found one that was flying at over 900 feet, and there is a video. It's a video linked on their site. I'm going to come on to one of their YouTube videos in a moment, showing the actual test and showing the data, etc. And again, here's another post we have, which is actually one where they're talking about the Denver Nugget celebration party. The news saying that there are 750,000 people there, perhaps 1 million people. You can imagine the RF interference being generated, but again, showing that it's actually working and showing, as you can see from the picture below, a lot of drone flights, basically, an awful lot of drone flights being undertaken. And of course, it's showing the same people launching multiple batteries and that type of thing. And there again, it's just talking about the full-blown stress test and the fact that it detected Mavic 3s, Mavic 3 Pros, a Cine, a Mini 3 Pro, and an Air 2S, and just really showing some of the data that they actually managed to pick up. Just as examples of the actual pictures, these are some of the pictures that they've released to show the information that is stored. Obviously, as you tap into each of these points, it brings up all of the information of those pilots, etc. I've tried to keep a lot of that off of here because there's no reason to have it. Again, it's going to show things like drones flying still with just the RF, but obviously without remote ID, it's not going, and if it's not DJI, it's not going to tell them very much. So yes, so it's showing all the data points that you might expect with this kind of technology. But interestingly as well, and we see this on the YouTube video that I'm about to show, they also show a map of the US, because of course all of this information is uploaded to the cloud. So this is something which is shared out basically wherever this company deems fit. Now, they do say that there will be different enhanced views for law enforcement and that type of thing. But that, of course, is something which is down to this company in terms of how they want to give people access to it. If you buy 5 of these modules and put them up, or 5 of these units, rather than confusing it and calling them modules, then those are the ones which you'll get access to when you sign in. But of course, as you can see here, they have full access to the full map, and so therefore that data is available should they wish to farm that data out. So one other thing I wanted to show you all is actually a YouTube video which was put up again on the Facebook group. Now, this is an unlisted video in particular, and I'm not playing out the sound. I just want to flick through a couple of things here, again, where they're showing the product itself in hand, so you can really get an idea of just how small these products are. You can see there, that's the extended range unit, and it really is a very, very small unit, isn't it, frankly? But also they go on to show the data, and again, as this gentleman signs into the website, you can see all of the modules, all of the units which are live, and showing all of the drone flights which have been recorded. And then, of course, you can then zoom in and you can get the specific data as he's showing there, and showing... so the user mode is not enabled, so it's not showing the RID information, etc. But again, it shows the model, it shows the speed, the height, everything else like that, and the route taken, distance from pilot. And this is, again, just showing him zooming in to get more of the flight data. Of course, the more you zoom in, the more information you're going to be able to pick up. So again, to me, this seems like this is more than just a simple app that the FAA sort of sell to us as, hey, it's okay, because, this is really for the public to be able to say, I wonder what that drone is flying over there. In their video, they have a couple of Instagrammers out flying, don't they? Is the example they give. And then they say, those Instagrammers look on the app to see whether or not the drone has remote ID or not. And, that is supposed to be the use case for remote ID, to establish whether or not it is a nefarious drone. And of course, there are other uses from law enforcement and that type of thing. But this kind of product, to me, starts to put into the public domain, starts to put into the public's hands, private homeowners' hands, a device that can essentially track all of our drone flights. So I would put a scenario to you that, what if your local municipality have these devices, 4 or 5 of these devices, and by the way, this company has reported on their social media of a complete sellout of their units several times so far. So these are selling. They're not mass produced as it would be perhaps with a large Chinese company or something, but still they are getting these units out. There's even some of them here in the UK actually, which is interesting, but that's a whole other subject matter for another evening. So these are getting out there, and these units are being used, and that to me is, it is a bit of a concern, basically. As simple as that. And this again is just showing actually on the phone how it can be processed and shown as well. And I know they're developing the phone app a lot, going by the updates that they're showing online. So this is something which, again, it's one of those things where you say, okay, we shouldn't be concerned if you've got nothing, if you're not doing anything wrong, if you're not flying illegally, if you're flying within the rules, what's the problem? It's absolutely fine for your data to be out there. And I've always felt that way in terms of looking at it from the point of view of authorities, the relevant authorities. So perhaps in that FBI video, a law enforcement officer wants to check, so they call the FBI or use an FBI link of somehow, and the FBI then get the data from the FAA and pass it on. I can see how that kind of thing would work. And again, a homeowner's not going to get your details. They're not going to get your address, etc. But they are going to see that it's your drone again. And if they wanted to pass this data on to law enforcement, if they wanted to pass this data on to make a complaint about your drone flight, they have the historical data, so they can show your drone flight over however many times you've flown that they've chosen to record you before reporting you. So I think that it can cause a problem there. I have to say I'm slightly concerned that this could cause a problem in terms of the wider aspect in terms of confrontation, because if you have an alert pinging off on your mobile phone to tell you that a drone has entered the mile radius and is heading towards your property, oh, but here's where the drone pilot is, I feel like that in itself is something which we should be concerned about, and something, especially as this is a reasonably, relatively affordable device, something which we should be concerned about in terms of who is using it and who has access to it, because again, this is being marketed towards homeowners and that type of thing. So that's the basics of the product. So let's have a look at the chat and see what people are saying here, as I'd be extremely interested to find out. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. If you wouldn't mind, the live audience, we've got just over 150 people at the moment. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, I would really, really appreciate it, saying the least, frankly. Andy Cortez, remind me which amendment it is not to incriminate yourself. Yeah, indeed. D&D Aerial Views, good to see you. Hope you're well. Door on network is closed for now, but can be opened anytime. Ian Simpson, I thought on DJI it could already have its drone to pilot link sniffed to give a pseudo RID in flight tracking, even now, shown by a German uni. Yes, and obviously there was the whole controversy of the DJI Aeroscope, is it secure or not secure, and allegedly it wasn't secure the whole time. So yes, but of course this is going to give a clearer identifier, and even to homeowners, etc. We've always had that little bit of a ridge that the affordability and the availability of counter drone technology has never been something that your average homeowner could actually put into use, basically. Keith Wilson, that old cliche, time and place for that in the correct environment, like you touched on, prisons, airports, etc. But if anyone can purchase it, it's open to massive abuse, and that's part of my problem. And I'm sure, you know, there would be a limit. There'll be limitations to this, from the point of view that, you know, just because someone has data, it doesn't mean it collected in a forensic way that can be used for law enforcement or anything else like that. So whether or not, I'm unsure as to whether or not a homeowner passing on data from this app, app which has been collected privately by them, okay, it's on this app, etc., but you do have things like spoofing, is actually enough to cause any trouble from that point of view. So I think one of the things that really does concern me is the fact that it has, you know, the ability to send a live update to your phone. To me, just sounds like something which is going to cause confrontations, basically, where someone can come running out and they'll know exactly where that person is flying their drone, of course. XJet, hi Bruce, good to see you. When using a broadcast RID module, cover it with foil. That won't dislodge until you've flown a significant distance from the takeoff point. That'll set your home position all wrong. Now, I've heard a lot of these things recently regarding covering the device, and, you know, oh, I've put the device on the drone and but I've covered it to protect it, and those type of things. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, only to say that, would it not be somewhere, and I need to look up the precise legislation, the precise law, but I'm sure that somewhere deliberately messing with something to deliberately avoid a federal regulation, I'm not sure that in itself might actually cause you trouble, but it'll be an interesting one. I think we're going to see some creative things, aren't we, frankly? Johnny Doe, at least if I forget to fill in my flight logs, there'll be a copy floating out there somewhere. Yes, perhaps they could sell the flight logs back a little bit like air data. D&D Aerial Views, here's a kick in the tush. Hobbyist can use one module for all their drones. Part 107s need a module for every drone. Yes, and of course there is the technical side of things as well, of course, Keith, that it's, again, I need to have the full write-up in front of me, but Part 107's flying self-build, I don't think they're actually even able to use modules at the moment. Just technically under the existing wording, I think they would actually have to have their aircraft inspected and become essentially standard remote ID. Lindsay Hayes, good to see you. This will get hacked and published. The risk assessment they must take into account as foreseeable. Who pays, and does the same apply to my sat-nav and car dash cam? If not, why not? Yeah, really, really good points there. And just have a look further down here as my chat jumps there. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. It's great to see such a large audience out for our early week, our early in the week stream. I really do appreciate it. Johnny Doe, everybody needs to fly on the same day at the same time to see how that app handles it. Yeah, and you know, there's going to be limitations to all of these kind of things. But what's I think has upset me about the development and the rollout of remote ID in the States. And I haven't made a specific video in response to Bruce's campaign, because I've always been making videos. And my video on why I think remote ID could fail was published back in August last year. It's had 50-something thousand views, and it's still picking up views today. So, and again, I've had about 14 different videos on this channel. So it's not something that I've personally picked up on recently. But of course, my last remote ID video was something like 2 weeks ago, a live stream. So we are covering it, certainly. But so I haven't put much of my sort of, my own sort of rant or feelings regarding remote ID. But what I'm upset about more than anything is the way that it's been handled in terms of it's so divisive and putting people against people everywhere. Even this product is putting homeowner against perfectly legitimate drone flyer, and just the wording on the website, the wording, the language they're using, the verbiage is just so aggressive and so so appropriate action can be taken, and it assumes the drone flying near your property is a problem, which of course very rarely will it be a problem, frankly, especially if they're legal enough to be displaying a remote ID number, etc. They're almost the drones that you don't need to worry about. So, and that's the same as the FAA. And I understand why, from a security point of view, they want to put the pilot location. I don't agree with it, but I understand why they're doing that. But it's something which I think that has put everybody against everybody in the hobby, the profession, the regulator, enforcement, and everyone really is having to take sides, really. And that, to me, is something which I think is quite dangerous. And it just isn't helping us move forward, frankly. Lindsay Hayes, I suspect that the use of this to establish pattern of lice data would class as harassment for an individual and a breach of GDPR if commercial. Yeah, it's interesting that on their Facebook group, actually, Lindsay, they've put a map up and shown that there are some of these units live being used in the UK by clients, and that to me is quite interesting. Obviously, here in the UK, we don't have remote ID. This doesn't claim to be able to read any kind of magic data. So in the UK, all they're going to be getting is RF signals. But it is still telling them that someone's flying a drone. Whether there's any kind of way they can analyze that data to actually find the individual, I'm not sure. But I think it's going to be interesting with remote ID here in the UK in particular, as far as privacy and data, etc., to see what actually happens in terms of that. And Pazman, Geeksvana, we all test fly our new drone from the garden as it's a place we feel safe. But I have been educated, but I've even educated my neighbours. Good to hear. It's always good to spread the word as much as possible, basically. So as much as possible. So there we go. As I said at the beginning, the US is. Drone flying in the US is something which is under scrutiny at the moment, and it's going to remain under scrutiny for a while now. I think that one of the key issues that we are still to see and still to find is enforcement. So come September, when everybody needs to start actually broadcasting their remote ID signal, so whether that is again with a DJI drone or whether you're going to use one of the modules of the varying sizes and types, and there are some very cheap ones on the way. That's obviously up to you in terms of and whether or not you're going to be compliant. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the FAA decide to enforce this, and also what kind of link up there is, what kind of hookup there is between the FAA and law enforcement. I've been seeing a lot online recently regarding the FBI doing a lot of public awareness courses, action days, that type of thing, in terms of flying around stadiums, drones around stadiums and that type of thing, and the trouble that can get you into and why you shouldn't be doing it. And it'll be interesting to see whether the FAA have any kind of outreach programs to local law enforcement, and whether or not this is going to be something which is enforced particularly vigorously. I think that's going to be something which I think time will tell, obviously, but I think we'll have a much closer picture come towards the end of the year and into next year as far as what happens. When you look at things like the spotter for FPV drones, you don't see spotters being fined, or having proposed fines thrown at them over in the US, or in fact here in the UK. So it isn't something that I see is obviously very high on the enforcement scale. Now, we do see, for instance, cases like the gentleman here in the UK who was flying over the football a game. We do see the snowball effect, where actually beyond visual line of sight not being registered and lots of historic flights being taken into account all add up into the fine process. But I think that, you know, that's interesting, and it will be interesting from the point of view of how this is used in enforcement terms, if that makes sense. So I think that's the probably one of the biggest questions that I would put out there. Ian Simpson, hi, good to see you. What I can see happening with security is little interest with RAD and heightening interest in flights which show no ID, but they have sniffed via other means. Yeah, and you know, it's one of those. It's one of those issues from the point of view of, you know, let's look at it from both aspects. So you've got a sky of, I don't know, this fantasy sky where every town has 50 drones above it at any point, and how far off we are from that we all know. But let's say there are 5 drones flying over a town and 4 drones have remote ID and 1 doesn't. And you could argue that that drone that doesn't is one the authorities are going to take more of an interest in, from the point of view that it's an RF signal that's coming out, but actually, you know, it hasn't got remote ID, so it could be nefarious. It isn't known to us, as they said in the FAA video with the Air Force base that was checking one out. The problem is, of course, that it doesn't mean those 4 remote ID compliant drones have good or nefarious intention behind those flights either. So it starts to break down from that point of view as well. But of course, you then have, from a security point of view, the fact that you're able to identify the pilot within a very precise location, some of the most precise locating of any GPS regulation in the world, and that again hands back to security in general, from the point of view of law enforcement, of being able to find that person quite quickly when the flight's actually active. That's the argument behind that, certainly. Lindsay Hayes, we need you to interview the data commissioner on this. What's legal, what's abuse? We do have a range of, in terms of the UK regulations, we've got a range of really interesting interviews being organised, and some recorded already, actually. So we do have some of that coming. Not the data commissioner, although it's a very good idea. I'll stick it on the list. But we do have a data expert type of thing, without disclosing who it is before I record it, that I think will give some good information. Northern Tier FPV, the one that doesn't is mine. Haha. Yes, indeed. Well, you know, I think going by the remote ID video releases that have been happening recently, I think that you can almost see the 10 drones that are flying, 2 of them might have remote ID because they're Part 107 pilots on a job, and the rest don't. It's going to be really interesting. What I don't want to see happening is people getting caught in the middle, either from confrontations or from, you know, receiving fines to be made examples of, and that type of thing. So, you know, it is a very, very careful and a very thought out thing in terms of deciding if you're going to comply or not, in my opinion. And as I say, it's not something that I scream from the rooftops whether you should or shouldn't comply. I understand the reasons for doing both, but I think that I would just genuinely, as human being to human being, I'd be concerned in terms of the impact on some people that, you know, receiving a fine several times over, which can quite easily run into thousands of dollars, can have on someone's life personally. And Dirk Gambit, hi, good to see you. They are restricting you because it's their airspace and they want to make money from it. Yeah, and that's always been one of the arguments, is in terms of the whole, you know, pay to fly, pay to access, which people are very concerned about coming down the line. Excellent. Okay, well, there you go. That is the stream for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. Do remember, you can also follow Geeksvana on any of our socials with our website. You can always email me, and there's Twitter. Twitter DMs are open as well. So you can always contact us and have a chat with us, or ask any questions if you like. We always try to respond. It's not always instant responses, but we will come back to you eventually with answers, etc. So do reach out if you'd like to. And our next stream coming up on Geeksvana Live will actually be myself and Graham, where we're actually looking at the UK airspace and really trying to break that down and provide a bit more information from hobbyists through to people looking to actually work with their drone, as far as how the open category and the subcategories of that and the specific category all fit together, etc. A little bit like our VLOS stream from a couple of weeks ago, just trying to break that down again to provide you with the information that you need. Okay, everyone, thank you very much. Again, please hit that like button, the 150 people that are here on your way out, and we'll see you next time on Geeksvana Live. Bye-bye.